Okay, so this tutorial is going to take you through setting up a After Effects project and looking at the basics of keyframe animation. So firstly we'll open After Effects. When you do open After Effects you'll usually see this splash screen. Because we're going to create a brand new project with new compositions, we can just close this for now. Okay, first thing we need to do is create a composition. Composition, new composition. And here we can set up the dimensions of our project, the frame rate and the duration. Now I'm going to choose PAL D1DV widescreen square pixel. And pixel aspect ratio square pixels, frame rate 25, and down here we'll set the duration to 20. And also we'll set the background color to white. If it's not white you can click on that, slide that into the corner, color picker, click OK. And finally click OK again in the composition settings window. Alright. Now it's always good practice to create folders in your project window to organize your assets. Now even though in this exercise we're not going to have a lot of assets at all, just the one composition, it's good practice and so we'll do it now as well. So I'll just create a new folder by clicking the create new folder button, call it comps, and then drag the comp into it. Alright, so we're ready to start animating now. And what we're going to do is create a text layer. So to do that, we come up here to the toolbar and choose the horizontal type tool. Over here in our character panel, which we can see, and if you can't see the character panel, you can always open it through the window menu and find it there. Okay, so what you'll need to do is make sure the color, the fill color, is set to black, and you want to set the font size to about 200, and so you can either click in there once and type 200 in, hit return, or you can hover your mouse over the value and drag to the left or right to set it. Around about 200. Now click once inside your composition window, and I'm just going to type the word price. Once you've typed the word, just go back, make sure to go back to your selection tool on the toolbar, and then you can drag the word around and adjust it if you need to. If we want to change the font and size, we don't need to use the type tool and highlight the text. We can simply select the text box, come over here, choose a new font. And likewise we can adjust the font size. Alright, I'm going to make it a little smaller actually, about 150. Okay, so you'll notice when we created our text box down here in the timeline, we now have a text layer. You can see it's a text layer, it's got the T icon, the name of it is the word that we've typed, and a bar here represents the text over time, and we can adjust that. And that's where we'll create our keyframes. This is the current time indicator, which we can drag back and forth. At the moment, we want to set it hard to the left at the very beginning of our composition. So, as I said, we want to animate this word moving from the left-hand side of the screen, over here, outside of the screen, moving to the right through the screen to end up here, outside the screen on the right. And we want this to happen over 2 seconds. So what I'm going to do now is just position the text box where I want it to start, which is here on the left, and make sure my current time indicator again is at the start of the composition. What I'm going to do now is expand the position property for the text layer by selecting the layer in the timeline and pressing the P key on the keyboard. Now remember, we can find those properties by expanding the properties of the layer with this triangle here, and then if transform is not expanded we can expand it, and then we can see position. It's good practice though to learn the hotkeys that let you expand each position individually. This saves a lot of screen space. So for position it's P. So I'll just collapse that again, select it, press P, and I can just see the position property. Now to begin animating and to set my first keyframe, I need to turn the stopwatch on. That's this little icon here to the left of the position property. So I click that on, and my first keyframe is created over here at the point where the current time indicator is. Now that the stopwatch is turned on, I'm animating. So any changes I make to the position value at points in time will create a keyframe at that point. So we've got a keyframe here with the text layer to the left. I'm going to now move the time indicator to 2 seconds. And I'm going to do that by using the current time control over here. And I just click inside it and type 2 and hit return. And you can see that the time indicator has jumped to precisely 2 seconds. So now all I need to do is to drag my text layer to the right side of the screen. That will then set a position keyframe at that point. So I'm just going to click it and start dragging. While I'm dragging, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. That'll keep it perfectly horizontal. And move it till it's outside the screen there. Let go. And you can see, sure enough, a position keyframe has been added at that point. So I can drag my current time indicator back and forth and see the animation happening. So that's really the basics of animating in After Effects. It's simply turning the stopwatch on and then changing the value of the property at points in time to create keyframes. Obviously that's a very simple animation. Let's repeat it though with another word and see how we can animate different properties. So what I'm going to do now is collapse that layer, and I'm going to lock it, and I'm going to do another position animation with a different word. So go back to my type tool and click to create my new type layer, text layer. I'll call this one down. Go to my selection tool. Now, with this animation, I want the word down to come from above the composition window, and I want it to travel down and end up below the composition window. But I don't want it to start right at the start. I don't want it to animate moving down while this word is moving across. I want it to begin animating down when this word has finished, so at 2 seconds. So I want the animation to start at 2 seconds in. So what I'm going to do now is select the down layer and press the P key to reveal the position key property for the down layer. And I'm going to move the playhead to 2 seconds, the same way that I did before. I've got my word positioned above the composition window, and now I'll click the stopwatch on, which will set my first keyframe at 2 seconds. Now all I need to do is move the current time indicator to 4 seconds and do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to drag this down and hold down Shift while I'm doing it and drop it there, and you can see now I have a keyframe at 4 seconds with the text layer below the composition window. So I can drag my current time indicator and see that that's working properly. Okay, let's do some more. Let's animate some more properties. So we've done position twice. I'm going to lock that. And what we'll do now is create a new text layer. So go back to my type tool and we'll do a rotation. Remember to go back to your selection tool. And I'm just going to position this in the round about the center here, well, like this. Now, we need to talk about the anchor point here of the layer. And the anchor point of the layer is also the rotation point. So in this case, the anchor point if I zoom in, is here. So when I rotate my word, it's going to rotate around that point. If I show you, it'll look something like, it'll go something like this. Okay. Now I can move the anchor point if I want it to rotate around a different point. The anchor point property we can access by pressing the A key. And we have two values, X and Y. And if I drag on these, you can see that I can move the layer in relation to that anchor point. So I can move it there to the center. Now I'm just doing that by eye because I'm trying to move quickly here, but I'm showing you that the anchor point has a control and you can control that point for custom rotations. So now if I go to rotate that, it will rotate around roughly the center. Okay, back to my selection tool, position this kind of roughly in the center here. Now, again, I want this animation to begin when the down animation has finished. Currently the rotate word is there right from the start, but I only want it to appear at 4 seconds when the down animation has finished. So I'm going to set my current time indicator to 4 seconds, and then what I'm going to do is move the in point of the layer to start at 4 seconds. So that's simple. Move my mouse here over the left hand edge of the red bar of the rotate layer, click and drag, move it towards the current time indicator. Now if I hold shift now, it'll then snap to the current time indicator. Now the rotate word won't appear until 4 seconds when the rest of the animation is finished. Okay. Now I need to move my current time indicator back to 4 seconds, so I'm just going to use my current time control. That means it's very accurate. And I'm going to reveal the rotation property for the rotate layer, so I select the layer in the timeline and press R. And I'm going to turn the stopwatch on to begin animating. It sets my first keyframe. Then I'm going to move my current time indicator to 6 seconds because I'm doing all of these animations in 2-second increments. And now I'm going to set the rotation. Now you can see here next to the rotation property we have two controls. One is in degrees and one is simply a number of times that we want the layer to rotate. So if I want it to rotate 2 times, I can click in there and type 2, hit enter. And now the layer will rotate twice between those two keyframes. If I want it to rotate in the opposite direction, I can use the minus, and then it'll rotate in the opposite direction. Alright, so that's a simple rotation. So again, we can put a value in degrees, but for simple rotations, it's probably easier just to set the number of times you'd like it to rotate. But if you want it to rotate less than 1 full time, then a degree value might be the best option.